In the world of wealth and luxury, the lives of some individuals seem like a dream. Expensive homes, lavish lifestyles, and seemingly perfect families are often portrayed in the media as the epitome of success. However, behind closed doors, the darkness of human emotions and unchecked power can take a horrific turn. One such case that shocked the world is the tragic story of a rich man who, facing the looming eviction of his multi-million-dollar mansion, resorted to violence that would leave the police and the public horrified. Today, we explore the chilling case of John L. Johnson, a wealthy man who executed his wife and daughter in cold blood after a bitter confrontation over his family's luxurious $5 million mansion. His horrifying actions are a stark reminder that wealth and status do not always protect against the deep, disturbing emotions that can manifest in the darkest forms of violence. The Johnson family, a picture-perfect life. On the outside, the Johnson family appeared to lead an idyllic life. John L. Johnson, a self-made millionaire, had built his fortune from the ground up, amassing a significant amount of wealth through his real estate ventures. His wife, Linda, was a well-regarded interior designer, known for her impeccable taste and sophisticated style. Together, they had built a life filled with luxury, living in a sprawling $5 million mansion in a quiet, affluent neighborhood. Their daughter, Sarah, was a bright and outgoing 19-year-old college student. She was known for her intelligence, charm, and the close-knit relationship she shared with her family. The Johnsons were the picture of success, often seen attending gala events, enjoying lavish vacations, and hosting extravagant parties at their mansion. To anyone looking in from the outside, it was hard to imagine a more perfect family. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect life, things were far from harmonious. Tensions had been building within the family for months, and it was clear that John's financial situation was beginning to unravel. The $5 million mansion, a symbol of success, now a burden. The mansion at the center of this tragic story had once been a symbol of the Johnson family's success. It had everything: multiple bedrooms, a grand foyer, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and sprawling grounds with a pristine pool and tennis courts. It was a home fit for royalty, a dream home that had cost them millions to maintain. But as time went on, the financial strain of keeping up with the upkeep of such an expensive property began to take its toll. John L. Johnson had been living well beyond his means, relying heavily on credit to maintain the lifestyle that he had once worked so hard to achieve. As a result, the mansion, once a symbol of his wealth and success, had become an overwhelming burden. In addition to mounting debts, Johnson was facing a looming foreclosure. The property was in danger of being seized by the bank due to his inability to make mortgage payments. Desperate to avoid losing his prized home, Johnson became increasingly agitated and anxious. He had tried everything from renegotiating his loan to seeking financial advice, but nothing seemed to work. As the situation grew more dire, the stress and pressure began to take a toll on his mental health. The final confrontation, a breaking point. In the weeks leading up to the tragic events, Johnson's behavior had become increasingly erratic. His relationship with his wife, Linda, began to deteriorate as she started to become more vocal about the financial troubles they were facing. Linda had been supportive of him for years, but she too was growing frustrated with his inability to resolve the situation. Tensions escalated when Johnson informed his family that they would have to leave the mansion due to the impending eviction. This was a breaking point for Linda, who had put years of effort into making their home beautiful and felt that their entire world was crashing down. Sarah, too, was devastated, unsure of where she would go or what the future held for her. But for John, the idea of losing the mansion he had worked so hard to acquire was simply too much to bear. In a fit of rage, he turned on his family, blaming them for the situation he found himself in. On that fateful evening, John was unable to control his emotions. His fear of losing everything, coupled with years of frustration, led him to take an irreversible, horrifying step. The murders, cold and calculated execution. On the evening of August 5, 2018, John L. Johnson executed a plan that would forever alter the course of his life and the lives of those around him. His wife, Linda, and daughter Sarah were both at home when Johnson, armed with a legally registered handgun, confronted them in their living room. What followed was an act of unimaginable violence. According to the police investigation, Johnson shot his wife, Linda, multiple times, killing her instantly. Sarah, who had been sitting in the same room, attempted to flee, but John chased her down and shot her as well, executing her in cold blood. After committing the murders, John Johnson calmly cleaned up the crime scene, removing all traces of blood and any evidence that could connect him to the crime. It was as though he was trying to erase the horrific actions he had just committed, hoping that his brutal decision would never be discovered. The discovery: a horrified neighbor. The following morning, a neighbor became concerned when they noticed that the Johnson family had not yet come outside. It was unlike them to miss their daily morning routine, and the usually bustling mansion was eerily quiet. The neighbor, suspicious and worried, decided to check on the family. When they arrived at the mansion and attempted to knock on the door, there was no answer. Growing increasingly concerned, the neighbor called the police. The authorities arrived shortly after and forced their way into the house. What they found inside was nothing short of a nightmare. The bodies of Linda and Sarah Johnson were discovered in the living room, both victims of gunshot wounds. The scene was grisly, with blood spattered across the floor and furniture. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle, leading investigators to believe that the murders had been committed by someone the victims knew. And soon, all fingers pointed to John L. Johnson. The arrest, the cold confession. John Johnson was taken into custody later that evening. After a brief standoff with the police, he was found in his car, parked in a remote area near the mansion, trying to flee the scene of his crime. When questioned by detectives, Johnson initially denied any involvement in the murders. However, after hours of interrogation, he eventually broke down and confessed to the killings. His chilling statement to the police revealed the extent of his anger, frustration, and obsession with the mansion. "I couldn't let them take it from me," he told the authorities. "It was all I had left. I just couldn't lose it. Not after everything I'd done to get here." Johnson's confession was cold and emotionless, and it left investigators stunned. He had shown no remorse for the brutal murder of his wife and daughter, viewing them as mere obstacles in his quest to keep his mansion. A family's tragic end. The trial of John L. Johnson was a highly publicized event, drawing widespread media attention. The prosecution laid out a compelling case, presenting the brutal details of the murders and Johnson's cold confession. The defense, however, argued that Johnson's actions were the result of severe psychological distress and the mounting pressure of losing his mansion. Despite the defense's arguments, the jury found John L. Johnson guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. His actions were deemed premeditated, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case left the community shaken, as it served as a horrifying reminder of the lengths to which some individuals will go when faced with losing everything they hold dear. A legacy of tragedy. The Johnson family's story remains a heartbreaking tale of greed, obsession, and senseless violence. The once glamorous mansion, which had been the symbol of their success, now stands as a grim reminder of the tragedy that unfolded within its walls. For John L. Johnson, his wealth and status could not shield him from the consequences of his actions. His decision to murder his wife and daughter in a desperate attempt to save his mansion ultimately destroyed everything he had worked for. The family he once loved was gone, and so was his fortune. The story of John L. Johnson is a tragic one, a reminder of how the desire to maintain wealth and status can drive a person to commit unimaginable acts of violence. His actions left 2 innocent victims dead, a family destroyed, and a community forever scarred. Thank you for joining us as we uncovered the horrifying events that led to the brutal murders of Linda and Sarah Johnson. If you found this case unsettling, please like, share, and subscribe to Dark Diaries for more chilling true crime stories. Stay tuned and stay safe.